abandoned ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Right! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our full spoiler review for Jedi Survivor. So spoilers ahead. We will be diving into this head first, and we have a group of people, of course, so willing and kind to join us on the podcast today, which we will introduce in just a moment. But for a quick word of caution, if you have not played the full game yet, maybe stop this now. But if you don't care about being spoiled, then hopefully we've waited long enough. Hopefully you're good to go. So let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
You were only a child when they sent you off to war. Now look at you. The weight of a galaxy on your shoulders.
Didn't I tell you to be more careful about who you scan? Come on.
I cannot tell you who you must become, or where the line is drawn. There are no easy choices. These are dark times. We have few allies.
Good to see you, Cal.
The odds are against us. And they will always be against us.
Now or never.
Seems our destinies are intertwined.
But I can tell you this. If there is any hope of surviving, we must stand against the darkness.
All right, Jedi Survivor came out on next-gen platforms and PC April 28th this past year, not too long ago, and thankfully we got a few friends joining us in the podcast today. So first up, I'll introduce Ben. Welcome back, sir.
Be back finally. It's been a minute.
Yeah, definitely, it's been a minute. Yeah, for sure. I can't remember just so long-term listeners might recognize your voice. What was the last episode that you were on? Because I can't remember.
I don't remember the name of the episode or the number, but it was one of your quizzes. I want to say right before Christmas.
Oh, okay, maybe okay, yeah. The Ultimate Star Wars Trivia. Yeah, okay, one of those.
Yeah, thank you.
Sweet.
Yeah,
awesome. All right, and Dan, welcome back. It's been a little bit as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, what was the last episode that you were on?
It was the Mandalorian review, season 3. It was like the third to last episode, I believe.
Right. Okay. Third to last. Okay. Yep. Sounds about right. Well, welcome back, and Kirk. Hello, sir.
Hello. It's good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back. It's been it's been too long since we did one of these together. So
I think the last one was the one of the final episodes of Mandalorian season 3, but I definitely remember the quiz from last year because that was an iconic ending to that episode with the winner and everything.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Actually, I was gonna ask you about that because I know we talked about another giveaway at some point, and maybe we can. We don't have anything to announce yet, but maybe we can chat about it after. Because I think I asked you about it once, but whatever the case is. Yeah, welcome back, dude. We're gonna be chatting about Jedi Survivor today. I think all of you guys just like first initial kind of hands up in the room here. Did everyone finish the game, or you're not gonna be put on a timeout for not having finished the game? But just curious here. Did everyone finish it?
Yes, and I'm ashamed to say, so I'm on parental leave, and basically means I'm getting paid to stay at home with my baby, and my baby sleeps all day, and so I have nothing to do but to sit there and make sure my baby's sleeping safely. And I may or may not have played all 27 hours of this game in 4 days. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Solid.
four 7-hour stretches.
Nice. What about you, Dan? You finished all of it?
I finished it yesterday or the day before yesterday, just in time for the podcast.
Sweet.
And I was gonna say, don't be ashamed of playing games with the baby. Like, I got so much gaming done when my son was born, just holding a baby in one arm and the controller in the other arm. It was great.
I feel so just rejuvenated hearing that. So thank you. So justified.
Enjoy this time because you get just focus on playing games. And once the kid starts crawling, then it's a whole different story.
I'll remember that.
Weirdly, you're making this stage of life sound so much more enjoyable.
We'll take it offline, but yes, it is great.
Yeah. Kirk, what you finished the game, I assume? Yeah.
Yeah, I did finish it. Nothing as exciting as you guys' experiences, but I finished it. I probably got it on day 2 when it came out, and finished it within, again, probably 4 or 5 days. And I had to because my entire social media feed is just Star Wars. It's just Star Wars and camera stuff. So right. I was getting spoilers on like the 2nd or 3rd day on my feed, and just like having to quickly go past them.
Brutal.
Yeah, so I had to rush through the story and get it done as quickly as possible, because that's also like, I haven't played too many games. I was most interested in the Star Wars story, and it was also like, it was great. So I finished it pretty early on.
Right. Yeah. No, it's so tricky, keeping up with all these Star Wars stories. It's so easy to get spoiled if you're not on it, like day one kind of thing. So I know a lot of the episodes for Mandalorian and this and that, like I will just wait for the midnight release, in our Pacific Standard Time over here in the West Coast of North America. And we'll just wait for that midnight release, and I'll just watch it right away, just so that the next day I kind of peace of mind. If I go onto the internet, some stupid YouTube thumbnail is not just going to ruin it for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what did it for me. I won't get into it just yet, but like there was a thumbnail that popped up, and I was like, wait, hang on, why is that coming up so early? And I'm like halfway through the game, and then I was like, no way. And then throughout the rest of the game, I'm just expecting something to happen because I saw this thumbnail. But I don't know how people do it in Europe, because I don't think in Disney Plus is available in some parts of Europe just yet. But obviously there's lots of Star Wars fans there, so yeah, they obviously would get spoilers and stuff for TV shows as soon as they come out.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, we all have kind of different angles of the perspective of how we played this game. So just off the bat, show of hands, which platform you were using when you played this game. Me personally was PC. Kirk?
I was on a Xbox Series X. So yeah,
yep,
the taller black one. Yeah.
Sounds good. Ben?
I played it on the PlayStation 5.
Alrighty. And Dan?
PlayStation 5.
All right, 2 PlayStation 5s, Xbox, and a PC. All right, sweet, awesome. We're covered. We're completely covered here. Which is great.
Josh.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you had to play it on the PC.
Yeah, I heard it. Buggy.
It was difficult. You know, it was a trial. I mean, there's nothing worse than like you're in the heat of the moment and then the game just crashes for some Unreal Engine error that just clearly is just not a very good port. And you know, this is a game which has like save spots, and you know, you got to like find those little Force Essence areas where you have to save the game. And you know, if you go too far without meditating, then you're hooped. So yeah, I definitely had a bit of a fight with certain areas, specifically sandy bits where sand is everywhere. And yeah, it was a very crashy game at times. So I just flipped it over to story mode at one point because I was so frustrated, and that way I could just kind of speed run the parts that I'd done like 3 times already. And yeah, that was my experience for like a good chunk of the game. But I am rocking pretty solid hardware, so it's not my computer, everybody. It was definitely just the port. So actually, Ben, maybe you can explain kind of how that works for anyone who doesn't know why the PC version is known to suck sometimes.
Yeah, so this game was made specifically for the PlayStation 5. And so the PlayStation 5, just the way the graphic card's designed, the processor, the RAM, it's got its own specific setup and design. It was made to run optimally on the PlayStation 5. And if you actually go and look up stability reviews, like the PlayStation 5 in performance mode runs almost perfectly at 60 throughout most of the game. As soon as you flip it over to the Xbox, it still runs well, but it definitely drops to like 45 frames a second, then back to 60. So it's less stable, but it still runs well. And then as soon as you jump to PC, they basically had to port this game to the PC, but they didn't optimize it very well. And this is very typical of games that are made for consoles and move to PC, because the PC market is very difficult to optimize a game for. It's much easier to just build the game from the ground up for PC because there's so many different graphics cards. So you're essentially trying to make this game capable of running on tons of different specifications. So yeah, that is why the PlayStation 5, you've definitely got the best experience. I own a PC, I own an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5, and I actually, when a game comes out, I will look up which console or PC it was made for, and then that's the one I'll buy it for. And this game, it was PlayStation 5. So
gotcha. Thank you for that. Yeah, a lot of people might not know how that works. So since the game's come out, you know, numerous patches have hit probably all platforms at this point to implement patches and kind of make the game a bit more stable. Admittedly, I've not picked it up since finishing the story mode because I went on vacation for a little while and got back and then just hadn't picked it up yet. So it's been a little bit since I've actually played any bit of the game to refresh my memory. But going through all my notes yesterday as I was trying to come up with some things to talk about for this podcast episode, it was kind of looking at all these articles online, kind of jogged my memory about certain things. So this game, the story of Cal Kestis continues with this sequel. It is a third-person action-adventure galaxy-spanning game from Respawn Entertainment, developed in collaboration with Lucasfilm Games. This narratively driven single-player title picks up 5 years after the events of Jedi Fallen Order and follows Cal's increasingly desperate fight as the galaxy descends further into darkness. Pushed to the edges of the galaxy by the Empire, Cal will find himself surrounded by new threats and familiar ones. As one of the last surviving Jedi Knights, Cal is driven to make a stand during the galaxy's darkest times. But how far is he willing to go to protect himself, his crew, and the legacy of the Jedi Order? So that was the synopsis there. And this game has 6 playable planets, including Coruscant, Kobo, Jeddah, a shattered moon, which is kind of the mining facility space station, a place called Nova Garen, which is a space station, and a planet called Tanalor, which is sort of a key planet in the plot of the story. I forget how many planets were in Fallen Order, but I don't think it was too many more than 6 or 7 maybe playable locations. But did anyone? Maybe we can just kind of start with you, Ben, and kind of go down the list. But did you find that you liked this game better than the first one, or did you like the first one better?
Yeah. So the game, like the actual gameplay, was definitely better in this one. It was a lot more refined. Somehow they found this cool way to have like a leveling system where you unlock ability points to improve your abilities, but you never felt underpowered without them, and you never felt overpowered with them. Mm-hmm. So I thought it did a way better job kind of making you feel like you were progressing towards something, but you still had a lightsaber from like the start of the game, which was awesome. The story was significantly richer too. Like, I don't know. I get moved emotionally by like good music and good story. And this was just a phenomenal story. Like there was betrayal, right? Romance, like it ticked all the boxes for, I think, what makes a good story. So this one definitely just took all the things that I loved about the first game and just made it better.
Nice.
So definitely preferred this one.
Well said. What about you, Dan? How did you find this one compared to the last one in the series?
This game was 100% better. The first one, I liked it, but I struggled to get through it. This one, like everything that was said before, like the story was better, the characters were more engaging, the gameplay was better. Like you, I had to switch it down to story mode. I was struggling at the beginning of the game, enjoying it because I just kept dying, and like it was frustrating playing through the same level over and over again. So like I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna switch it to story mode, see how it goes. And then I enjoyed the game much more because like I guess I was more into the puzzles and the story versus like the combat. Yeah. And yeah, it was a fun game. And there's like you said, like with the betrayal and stuff, there's moments where I was like, oh my god, like I'm so pissed at this guy, I want to get back at him, and like the characters draw you in. Yeah, I loved the mixing the Clone Wars stuff with the getting into like the Yavin, and then also seeing some of the High Republic stuff, which I'm not really familiar with, so that was really interesting to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Definitely. Awesome. And Kirk, what'd you like about this one compared to the last one?
Yeah, definitely everything echoing what Ben and Dan said. I absolutely loved this game. I think it was really built on the first one. The story was the biggest part for me that I loved. I think, personally, I think it's probably the best Star Wars story that we've gotten post kind of sequel era, or just even including the sequels. Like probably the second favorite for me is Mandalorian. But yeah, it had everything that I wanted in a story, and I was really excited to see these characters get back together. Mm-hmm. In terms of gameplay, I loved how you didn't reset. So like you didn't lose all your skills that you kind of learnt in the previous game. Like if you maxed out all your skills, so it's not like Cal just forgot everything. But then it also felt like there were tons more things to learn and to achieve, and in terms of skills for the character, but also just in terms of playability. I really love the different ways that you could customize, what lightsaber and weapon setup that you had too. So I felt like by the end of the game, the character was very much like what I would feel like I would be as a Jedi in this galaxy, like how I would set things up. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty cool. And I did play on the mode just above story mode for the entire game, right up until the last fight where it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just wanted to know how the story ended, and I tried at this final boss, and I just like gave up and I put it back to story mode. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, I love this game so much, and I think I'm really looking forward to playing it through again. But the story for me was definitely the highlight.
Yeah, no, that's very that's a great point, because this game, unlike some Star Wars games, which do tend to come out and might not have a story to it. You see so many kind of mobile games and games over the years where they just really haven't had a whole lot of narrative to it. It is kind of a big pillar in Star Wars gaming, this particular title, because like you all were saying, like we haven't had too many stories come out since the sequels, which are kind of, they act as like large cinematic scale stories. But then on top of all that, we haven't really had a whole lot of canon narrative games at all. I mean, there's been the campaign in Battlefront 2. We've had the campaign in Star Wars Squadrons. We've had Jedi Fallen Order, and now we've had this game. And aside from the VR games, which are very kind of small, short story, canon story experiences, which I wouldn't count as kind of a cinematic point of view, I think it's just the four, unless I'm leaving one out. But yeah, this was it's kind of crazy to think that like in 10 years since Disney's owned the Star Wars license and EA's had the exclusivity of the Star Wars license, that we've only had 4 kind of pillar story narrative driven games as time's gone by. So, you know, I'm definitely looking forward to next year when we get Ubisoft's Star Wars Outlaws, because that's a very story narrative game as well. But it's very different, and this one is very kind of centered on a Jedi kind of trying to find his way in the dark times, which is you know, a period of time in which all the Jedi are pretty much wiped out from the Purge. You know, Darth Vader and his Inquisitors are hunting them all down. And this game takes place during the same year that Obi-Wan Kenobi takes place, which if anyone has seen that show on Disney Plus, it's kind of at the halfway point between episodes 3 and 4, and takes place after Solo by a couple years as well. So, but before Star Wars Rebels. So it's this very kind of central time, the very kind of bottom point of the dark times. So for me, it was like, I was really excited to see just kind of where they would take that tone. And like what you were saying, Ben, like, you know, you get all the boxes ticked, you know, the betrayal, the romance, the friendships, like the real like feelings that you get kind of when you watch a Star Wars movie kind of make their presence felt in the narrative of this story. So it was a very, very well written campaign, and, you know, just makes all the characters so much greater than they were the last time around. So, yeah, and to what you said, Dan, the High Republic, that plays a huge part in this game as well. So the first game had a very Tomb Raider style element with Cal uncovering the mysteries of an ancient civilization of Force-sensitive people, a civilization once known as the Zepho. And that kind of element remains very, shall we say, part of the personality of this game series. But instead of just continuing on with the Zepho, that story narrative has been replaced with a similar but not nearly as ancient time period being in the High Republic. And all it has to offer, the story, including some characters and places and planets that, you know, Cal rediscovers Jedi temples and space stations and worlds where there was once effort on behalf of the Jedi and the Republic to expand in the Outer Rim. And it was a very nice touch to this game because, you know, considering that the High Republic is kind of being this ongoing current story initiative in many respects, you know, it plays tribute to that very well. And, you know, definitely for some people could have been their first time experience seeing what that era was like. And I know, Dan, that you mentioned it earlier to me today about that. Did you want to kind of like talk about, you know, you'd heard about High Republic before, but this was your first time really seeing kind of what that era must have been like. Like, how did that intrigue you when you were playing this game?
I loved it. Like I know of the High Republic, but I didn't, you know, I've just seen like images and like book covers and some panels from comics, but I didn't really know anything about it other than it's like the start of the Jedi Order and stuff. So this being an introduction to me, like it really grabbed me, and I was like, oh, okay, this is getting a taste of it, seeing like the old droids, seeing the older technology. Like I thought it was really cool, and I wanted to know more. And like, to me, this is like my gateway drug into that part of the Star Wars universe. I want to start reading the comics now, maybe start reading some of the books and just finding out more about these characters.
Yeah.
In that era.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Kirk, did you have a similar experience with that when you came across characters like Dagan and you know, the droid, I'm forgetting her name, yeah, the crazy loopy one. Z, yes, thank you. Yeah. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, this was my first experience with any type of High Republic lore, and I really enjoyed it. And I think I can't remember who said it before, but I think there was a really great connection between like the prequels to the original trilogy and even this newer High Republic era as well. And I think this quite fits in with that new timeline that's been going around as well. That was, I think, shared in Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
But I thought all the characters were great. And I think, for me at least, it provides me a better understanding of, I guess, from Dagon Gera's perspective, of how the Jedi went from these, wise and willful and less involved type of people and community to where they kind of ended up in where we see them in the Clone Wars and the prequels, where they're more kind of soldiers of the Republic and everything. So I really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were great. And with Dagon Gera's character, I honestly felt throughout the whole story that it was going to end like at six different points. I'm like, oh, is that it? That's the end of the story? But like it kept on unfolding with these characters. And maybe it was because I was playing so late in the night and I really wanted to get to the end of the story because I was so keen to hear what happened. But yeah, they were all really good. And I'm quite keen to actually get into some of the books now and learn more about this era, because I think it was quite well written, and just visually seeing, especially through the flashbacks and everything, it did provide quite an interesting story.
Yeah, absolutely. The High Republic has, they're kind of wrapping up, or they're midway through the second phase, which acts as a prequel phase to phase 1. The entire multimedia project was announced in 3 phases. The first one being complete, the second one ending this year, and the third one starting this fall and ending next year, leading up into the live-action Disney Plus show called The Acolyte. And in there is, somewhere in that kind of phase of time between all these 3 phases of stories filled with comics and audiobooks and novels, this game features flashback events to somewhere in that time period. And, as time goes by, maybe they'll kind of put an exact placement for it. But I can confirm it is set somewhere between phases 1 and 3, ignoring the events of 2, because that is it's kind of weirdly numbered that way. 2 takes place before phases 1 and 3, because it's a backstory. So it does fit kind of somewhere, after the early to mid halfway point, I guess, in the narrative that they've been doing in the novels and such, because the Nile were mentioned at some point in the game, a very brief mention. The Nile actually attacked the temple being set up on a planet called Tanalorr, and I was waiting for the Nile to be mentioned this like the entire game until we got that, and then I started freaking out in my chair, because I was like, yes. All those books definitely paid off, and for the split second that they even talked about it, now I know what they talk about.
Reward you for being like an ultra nerd.
Yeah, I know, right? It's just like that 3 seconds of gratifying like goodness that what a character is talking about. After hours of reading.
That's what grabbed me, because like I beat the game and I'm like, wait a minute. Who the hell were those guys that showed up and attacked the planet? They didn't explain that. So I Googled it and I'm like, okay, there's a much bigger backstory here, and it sounded really cool.
Yeah,
yeah. Do you want to go into them a little bit to explain to everybody?
I can, yeah. I'll keep it pretty brief because there is so much. And, in short, the High Republic era is basically a time of peace. It's in the Republic, as we know from the Phantom Menace. Mace Windu says that the Sith haven't been around, in a millennia, or Ki-Adi-Mundi says it, or somebody. And so the Sith are not exactly the villains of the story. And so when the story writers kind of got together to try and find an antagonist to fight against the Republic and the Jedi, I guess the idea or the concept of having these sort of space Viking style kind of piratey people were almost like Ravagers sort of thing. They sort of like came to light, I guess, within the story. And they refer to themselves as the Nihil. They have certain technologies and certain secrets, which I won't reveal just yet, which allow them to travel through hyperspace in a very unique way unknown to the Jedi or to the Republic, because at this time, outer space, like the Outer Rim and hyperspace lanes and stuff, are all still being mapped out. Which there are a lot of kind of more mainstream routes, but kind of the idea of going to a place with a Navicomputer that could just calculate the quickest route possible is not exactly a common thing at this point in time. And the Nihil have their ways of doing things. So they're able to sneak around the galaxy essentially without the Republic being able to monitor them or track them down or whatever. So they pose a very great threat because they act like terrorists. They go in and they bomb up a place, or they steal all they can, and they'll kill anybody that they see, and they pretty much just kind of split the loot, and they have a whole hierarchy of power going on within their organization. And there's one guy up at the top named Marchion Rowe, and it's like a whole thing. So they essentially kind of make their debut in the story at the very first book of Phase 1, which takes place after Phase 2, which is the backstory. And that book is called Light of the Jedi. So that might be a really great kind of intro to anyone who wants to experience like stories with the Nihil and kind of explore more with them coming into the story at some point. That's a great way to kind of get into it. Check out Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, and the story kind of goes on from there. So yeah, that's essentially kind of a quick explanation there. Nihil, High Republic stuff. There's a number of characters that make their return to this game. All the main core group from the first game, and this game does follow the events of the novel Jedi Battle Scars, which myself and AJ actually talked about on the podcast just about a week ago. We did the full review on that novel, and that is a really nice tie-in story to the events of this game. They explain how Grease lost his arm, because now he's got a cybernetic arm and all that stuff. And some other things that kind of play into why these characters are separated at the beginning of the story. And because there is a time jump and everything, it's kind of nice to have some connective tissue there. But we'll just go down a list of kind of 9-ish characters here, which maybe we can just kind of do a little bit of a spotlight on. Or maybe 10 characters here. So first up is the 9th Inquisitor. I thought this person was dead, but this is the first boss that you fight in the game. The Night Sister has kind of been, I guess, maybe she didn't die in the first place on Kashyyyk, but she comes back. Was anyone else here surprised that she showed up, or was it just me? Because I thought for sure she was just gonna be gone, and then she pops her ugly head up again, and I'm like, oh great, gotta kill this person again.
Somehow the 9th sister returned.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to ask, you just called her a Night Sister. Was that intentional?
No, sorry. 9th sister.
Okay.
Yeah. The number 9.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I didn't think too much about it. So I wasn't thinking, oh, there's not going to be any more Inquisitors. So when she popped up, I was like, oh, it's her. But I don't know. My thinking stopped, I think, after that.
Yeah. There was another character who showed up called Ravis. And Ravis was an interesting one because in the canon so far, we haven't yet seen any character of this particular alien species. But in the old EU, specifically the 2D Clone Wars series, we did see a character very, very much like this, known as Dirge, the bounty hunter. And Ravis is of the same species. He is made up of all these kind of tentacly kind of worm things, and basically lives forever. So it was cool to see one of his own kind of make their appearance in a game like this. And he's part of a group called the Bedlam Raiders, who kind of play a large role in the story. And he's working side by side with the main villain, who is known as Dagon Gera. But Ravis was a cool boss to fight. Did anyone have anything to say on Ravis?
This guy was the most annoying character for me to fight, and I heard him say the line, "I've been waiting for this day for 200 years," about like 30 times because I fought him so often. But I guess that's what makes him a really cool character. I think can he not die or something? Is that what the theory is with him, or not the theory? Like
well, he did die though.
Like he just grows up. Oh, so not die,
Yeah.
but like he regenerates really easily or something.
Yes, yeah. So the species is called the Gendai, and they're extremely difficult to kill. Very, very difficult. If anyone's seen the 2D Clone Wars animated series, like the Micro series from Cartoon Network back in the day before the 3D The Clone Wars came out, Dirge was like a bounty hunter who he wore a mask and stuff, whereas Ravis doesn't exactly wear a mask, but Dirge had this big, huge kind of blue markings on his chest, and he had these giant guns, and Obi-Wan Kenobi fights him in this like super badass like clone trooper, suit with his cape and everything like that. It was awesome. But yeah, his species hasn't really been, it's a very rare species, and like not a lot is known about them. So it was really neat to kind of see this character be of that species, because it just kind of marked a new age for the canon to kind of establish like a look and a visual presence and all that of their kind. So that was pretty sweet.
I thought he was really cool. I liked his character, and like even though he was a bad guy, like he wasn't like just strictly evil. Like he kind of had a code of honor, and like he was just kind of bound to the other guy to like helping him out and everything, because I think he saved him or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree. It was kind of like the way I felt about like Thanos, like when I first saw him, like, oh great, just another big bad guy. But I was like, oh no, he actually like has it's his own twisted sense of ethics, but he believes in something. And I was like, okay, I'm actually more interested in him now. So
right.
Yeah, he was a cool character in the game.
Yeah, it's a really good way of making a villain a certain way and writing a story a certain way without having some weird loopholes as to question like, oh, why didn't he just do this? Like, if a character is established that they've got like a code of honor, essentially, like, for at least what they do, then it's easier to kind of recognize like, oh, that's why he didn't just straight up kill him in this moment, or like whatever, stuff like that. So yeah, it was a cool character. Eno Cordova, who is a Jedi, showed up again in this game, and he is the Jedi Master who once trained Seer Junda, and the initial caretaker of BD1. He was in Jedi Fallen Order quite a lot, but mostly in hologram recordings. And he is a Jedi Master known for kind of researching a lot of old civilizations, and he's got a thing with ancient artifacts and stuff like that. And, full spoiler alerts for, and again, anyone who hasn't played this game, there was a lot of deaths in this game. So I was very surprised when this character died. I thought for sure maybe he would make it at least another game, but that was pretty cool to actually kind of see him pop up. You're like surprised to see him, and then boom, he's dead. So it was. Did anyone kind of get that moment where Eno popped up and you're like, oh hey, I know him, or was it just me?
Yeah, I mean, I read the comics that came out as a prequel to Jedi Fallen Order. So you got to see a lot more of him as like a Jedi Master, but he was younger, and Seer was like just a Padawan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was cool. Like I felt like, because I'd kind of like how you felt with, the Nile, you felt like you had some like familiarity, some backstory. There was like there was more in you about this character, about these species. I felt like, oh man, like I know who this guy is. Like I've gotten to see him more than just recordings. And then, yeah, when he gets shot, I was like I felt in my gut. I was like, that hurt to watch. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, we got to talk about that twist. Like I saw the twist coming, but even though I knew it was going to come, and it wasn't spoiled for me, I had a gut feeling that we're talking about Bode.
Yeah,
Bode. Like he was going to be a bad guy, but like when it happened, my jaw still dropped. I was like, oh damn it! I didn't want it to happen, but I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
yeah, you did better than I did. I did not see it coming.
I didn't see it coming either. Like I was like, oh, this guy is like, yeah. I was like, I liked him a lot.
I'm like, oh, he's like too buddy. He has a daughter. I'm like, he's gonna betray him because he's gonna protect his daughter. And it's like, and I didn't want it to happen. And when it did, I was like, damn it. But it made that scene so like emotional. I'm like, when you're chasing after him in the speeder bike, I was like, oh, I'm so pissed. I want to get him now. Like, so that was a good emotional moment in the game. And I enjoyed the fact that part was different from all the, like, that was the only time you're riding a vehicle and you're like chasing after somebody. And it's like, it was a good story moment that broke up the gameplay.
Yeah.
I thought.
So there's an even bigger twist that comes after that, because I thought that was like the twist, right? But so for anyone who doesn't care, we spoil it. This character first introduces you to Bode Akuna as a gun for hire, and he likes fighting back against the Empire and stuff. So the big betrayal happens. He's actually like he shoots Eno Cordova and gets away, and you chase him down. It turns out that he's actually a Jedi who survived the Purge, and he's like kind of turned to the dark side, and now he's like a dark Jedi. And that, I think, was like the secondary surprise.
That was like a double twist.
Yeah, it was like the double twist that I just never saw coming. I never saw him. I never thought he would betray Cal. And then secondly, I was like, wait, what? He's a Jedi too? Like, are you kidding me?
That did catch me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. I was like,
he was the least looking Jedi I've ever seen as well. Like, he just looked like Han
Oh
Solo.
Yeah, that's a good. He's like a bro. Like
yeah.
Not some mystical warrior.
Hang loose, Cal.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that was smart because you weren't expecting it. Yeah, he was like a jock with a jetpack, like flying around, like
Yeah.
the Rocketeer or something. Like, you weren't expecting him to bust out with like Jedi powers and.
Right.
That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah.
It kind of reminded me of Rocket Man a little bit, or the Rocketeer. What you said, Dan, the Rocketeer, that Disney movie. He's got the burgundy red kind of shirt on. He's just like.
But what's cool is it's also like a throwback to like Flash Gordon, which is why George Lucas created Star Wars in the first place, is because he wanted to do Flash Gordon and he couldn't get the rights.
Right.
So he made Star Wars. So it's kind of like a little nod to that, like if you're doing a deep dive.
Yeah, for sure. It was cool. Yeah. It was too bad because he was such a likable character and ended up being a villain. But again, really a tribute to the writers of this game. It was awesome twist.
Yeah, I personally didn't see the twist coming, like both of them, whether he was a Jedi or that he was going to betray. But the only reason, okay, actually, I might backtrack on that, because the only reason I did kind of see it coming, speaking of the spoilers before, I scrolled across like a YouTube thumbnail or a tweet, I can't remember what it was, and it was just a really close-up shot of Bode's face, and the caption was, why? Exclamation mark. Oh no, like a bunch of question marks. Yeah. So that was on like day 3, and then for the back of my mind, I'm like halfway through the game, I'm like, is like, what's up with this guy? And then I'm just thinking something's going to happen. But when it actually happened, I was still shocked, but that I was still kind of expecting it. The only other kind of reason as well, I was like, why did people put this? Like, why did I come across this? Was that he kept on asking Cal about Merrin, like saying, oh, hey, like this high school kid, like, oh, you got a crush on her, like, are you going to start a family with her? You should give things up. So I was thinking in my head, did Bode like cheat? Like, did Merrin cheat on Cal with Bode or something? Like, what's going on? So so I got really frustrated when that actually happened to be, and I saw that, and that's why I was so motivated to finish the game so quickly, was because I saw that stupid picture of his annoying face on the timeline. But I thought the twist was awesome, and I personally didn't really see it coming.
Right. Yeah.
Dan secretly smarter than all of us predicting the game.
I did have one spoiler. I had a spoiler. I was going through a website that was talking about Jedis that survived the Purge and what happened to them, and I saw the one, and there was a page on Cordova, and it talked about how he dies. I'm like, okay, so he must die in this game, and at some point, Jedda's going to get attacked. But then, so I was like, okay, well, somebody must have betrayed their location, and then that kind of led me to think, oh, it's got to be Bode.
Oh man, you like unraveled the entire thing just on that one.
So
spoiler.
maybe that, like, finding out that he dies, like maybe that's what revealed it. But
yeah.
Dude, I'm sorry. That's too bad.
Yeah, I know, that sucks.
And now we got to talk about Marin. Because Marin, like, I really liked her character in this game. I thought, like, I liked her interaction with Cal a lot. I like that. Like, he was like, you know what? Maybe the Jedi was wrong on, like, I'm guessing the whole celibacy thing. Like,
yeah,
like, you know, I like that he tried to explore a relationship with her.
So Jedi, just to correct, or just a pipeline, George Lucas has officially stated Jedi do have sex regularly. Sex is not off the table for Jedi. It's relationships that are off the table. But yeah, you're definitely right.
Okay, so they can give into needs, but they can't have an actual relationship or be married or have a family.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's something they've kind of more recently established in Star Wars stories. That's made very clear in the High Republic books. There's definitely like two Jedi who are constantly kind of going at it, but like the one of them struggles with the attachment side, and the other one doesn't. So you know, it's an interesting dynamic, I guess. But
what's their reasoning for it? Like, is it just like
I don't really
purity
know.
of thought?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's about. I think it's about like you're supposed to be committed to being a Jedi in the Jedi Order, and you can't have like attachments. Period. It's not just like with relationships. It's you can't be. That's why they take you as a kid, right? They don't want you to ever have something that you feel jealous over, or something that you love or hate, or some reason to have an emotional reaction to a situation that can make you turn to the dark side or something.
I don't know why they would
that's
tempt
a perfect
fate.
way to put it. Because like,
oh, go ahead.
yeah,
Greg. Yeah.
Because worst case scenario, you have. Sorry, man. Like, I think the worst case scenario you have what happened to Anakin. Like, he got so attached to Padme, and then that's what led him to the dark side and everything. And then obviously you have other side of things where you can see where it can work. Like, for example, Obi-Wan and Satine, but I mean, obviously that didn't quite work for other reasons. But from an emotional standpoint, I guess it did. But I think what this game like really was trying to play into was that it's not binary. You don't have to be completely on the light side and not have any attachments and go with what the Jedi think is the perfect Jedi. And you obviously shouldn't completely fall to the dark side as well. But I think it's finding that balance and tapping into both sides is what really makes someone the person that they are. And I think it also kind of links up with how we left Luke off in the end of Return of the Jedi, where he obviously had to tap into the dark side in order to bring his father back, and also to become the best version of the Jedi that there is, like someone that's not just completely one-sided and everything. So I love like how towards the end, I also think throughout all the marketing material for the game, at the end, you know, in the final battle against Bode, it was like you needed to tap into the darkness just to try and have that edge. And I think also, what was that planet called? Where the Empire base is, I can't remember what that planet was called. Where you have to go and find Bode's apartment or whatever, but where you just tap into the dark side, but not just go over.
Yeah, Nova.
And then and then how Merrin. Yeah, that's right. And then like how Merrin was there to bring him back before he kind of pushed way too far. And I thought the way that the game explored that was like probably the best I've seen that topic explored in Star Wars so far.
Definitely, yeah.
That was a really cool part of the game. Like you said earlier, like I had thought the game was going to end when you fought that the one Jedi. What's his name? Denga?
Dagan.
Yeah, Dagan. I thought that was going to be the end of the game, and then it just kept going after that, and like I'm glad it did, because the whole part on that the ISB, the Imperial, or it was IBS, like the whole section was really cool when he's going after Bode, and like and then you run into his daughter, and
yeah. No, that was very good story stuff. Yeah. Speaking of Dagan,
yeah, I think.
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
No, I was just gonna add the last thing to kind of what you were saying about you know, the gray Jedi, I think is the Star Wars term for that Jedi that's neither a Jedi, they're not a Sith, they're just kind of like Ahsoka's like the master of that, right? She's not a Jedi, she's completely neutral. Another good example would be like the Night Sisters. I don't know if you guys ever read the book Dark Disciple, but Asajj Ventress, right, Dooku's apprentice, when Dooku attempts to assassinate her, and she's no longer like his apprentice because Sidious finds out about her and he tells Sidious to kill her. She ends up like traveling with a Jedi, and she like this Jedi is obviously he's a Jedi, he's only on the light side, and she's trying to like teach him how to be a gray Jedi. And of course, once he starts getting a taste of the dark side, he kind of just dives head first. And she's like, no, like you can't do that. Like that's bad. Like you have to just like a little bit here, a little bit there, like find like just set on, sit in the balance. And yeah, so I think this game kind of did a good job honoring that sort of thing. And then I think the final thing that, you can add to that comment where, yeah, they're not supposed to have a relationship, and this is kind of talking a little bit about, well, maybe the Jedi didn't have it all right. Cal says the Jedi Order is finished, right, or something along those lines, and so it's kind of just an affirmation that like the Jedi are no more, like I'm part of a dead religion, like I should probably look to continue my life with like the next thing, and so that like he says that right before kissing Merrin. So
yeah. It was an interesting kind of look, closely at the relationship of Cal and Merrin, because I feel like we all kind of felt it budding in the first game, but kind of to see it come to fruition in this one was like just really nice. But because I feel like we're all rooting for it to happen, but yeah, like it's difficult for Cal because he wants to not only kind of take out his vengeance on the Empire, but he also wants to do what he can to I guess be the best Jedi he can be. And I think it's Seer who actually tells him, there's nothing that like, wasn't it Seer who told him there's nothing we can do in our lifetime that can, maybe restore the Order fully to what it was before, but like what we do now is like a seed for later or something. And so I think he just goes like, all right, screw it, like and then he's like, I'll just live the way I want. But yeah, Merrin, we got a lot more of her in this game, and she is one of the last of her kind, since the Night Sisters were mostly all wiped out when Grievous came in to Dathomir and destroyed most of their home and all of her sisters and everything like that during the Clone Wars. And that was a really cool kind of, in the first game as well, I remember it being that just a really cool Easter egg. But it was nice to see her kind of continue to struggle with that loss of her family, just in the same way that Cal struggles with the loss of his family and the life that he's always ever known. So they have a lot in common, and that was definitely a focus point for those characters. Dagan Gira, who we were just talking about, is a surviving Jedi from the High Republic era who was preserved for many hundreds of years in a Bacta tank. And it was super cool to kind of see something like that in Star Wars, because it felt very science fiction to me. And, when he gets rescued by Cal and pops out, he instantly kind of like goes back to his plans of doing what he was doing before, which was basically just acting as a dark Jedi would and proceeding with kind of how they feel things need to be. So right away we get him essentially trying to bleed his lightsaber crystal, and that was really cool to see. He doesn't really successfully do it though, because he only managed to make an orange blade as opposed to a red blade, which is what the Sith would do. But did any of you guys kind of enjoy seeing that unfold on screen? We've only had very bits and pieces of this sort of act within the Force, kind of in the Darth Vader comic book series. But, to everyone, this was kind of a first time on-screen appearance. What did you guys think of that? Maybe let me start with you, Dan.
I thought it was really cool. Like, yeah, it's just nice seeing it like actually happening, and he was a cool character. Like,
yeah,
he wasn't like just like Ravis. Like, he was, what he was doing was bad, but like he felt like he had a reason for doing it, and he was just in love with Tanalorr and wanted that to be like a place where like he thought like the Jedi could live, and it's like you understood his motivations, but even though like they're flawed, and
Yeah.
he was a good villain.
Yeah, definitely. Seer Junda was a focus character. Very powerful, of course, making her return again. And this game, it's revealed that she is helping forge the path, or the hidden path. You know, the path the one that is mentioned in Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is a kind of an underground for Force users, Force sensitive people, and Jedi to essentially kind of escape the Empire and find freedom. So it was really cool to kind of see that kind of be the crossover, being the same year that Obi-Wan Kenobi takes place. Like, it was cool that was the crossover point. And also, I mean, you know, we saw her die in this game as well. But we also got to play as Seer, and that was super cool because, like, she is wicked powerful. And, you know, I really enjoyed the brief moment that I got to play as Seer. But did anyone have anything to say on that?
Yeah, that moment, I thought that I lost, like, because you cut from Cal, like, fighting Bode for the first time, and I wasn't like, I think I got like a few hits in with Bode, and then he killed me. Then said he had to respawn, and then as soon as I started playing for Seer for like good, like maybe 20 minutes or so, I was like, what on earth has happened to Cal? Like, did he die? Like, I wasn't too sure. But I thought that that whole sequence really reminded me of like the Battle of Geonosis in episode 2, when it's like really dark and the sandstorm is kind of like really kicking in. I thought it was a really cool moment, and especially with the cameo fight at the end of it, and then Cal's reaction to her death, I thought was just like absolute cinema, as Scorsese would say.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought the same thing when it said like respawn. I'm like, oh crap, I died. Like, I didn't know I was supposed to be hitting the button or something, fighting, like, and then suddenly you're playing as Seer, and I'm like, oh, this is cool way to like see a different perspective. And yeah, that I wasn't expecting Darth Vader to show up. Like, there's that cool sequence where she's rolling giant like spheres down the hillside to blow up like AT-ATs attacking the base and stuff. Like, I was kind of bummed about, like, I was hoping that the hidden path would survive and like they'd establish a base on Tanalorr. So like seeing it all kind of get destroyed, I was like, okay, they're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that whole sequence completely like changed the tone and the trajectory of the game, because I fully agree. I was like, okay, this is what becomes of the hidden path. Man, like a secret Jedi temple on Tanalorr. What a cool opportunity for a story. Or, maybe they'll use this for like Rey's movie coming forward. And then, yeah, like it all just goes to pot. And I was like, well, there you go. There's my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went from quite a hopeful story to like darkness. Like it didn't like, the positivity didn't really pick up from then. Like it went, yeah, we're pretty hopeful, and then it all kind of went to crap from there.
I think, yeah, that's a great point though, and that's like kind of like it's kind of a solid thing to stick to too, because this game is really the core and the very, rock bottom of the Dark Times period. So it's almost like this game is supposed to kind of almost emanate the idea that hope just doesn't exist anymore, for a lot of the characters in the story. So you see, betrayal and death and, just everything's falling apart. Everything's unraveling. You start this game with the characters all split up because of something that, that happened. And obviously it kind of goes into more detail in the novel, but yeah, it's a dark period for all these characters. Yeah.
There is one thing I'll give the game credit for though. It's so common in Star Wars, but other franchises too, right? You have the original story, but then you kind of backtrack a little bit, right? So they're like, okay, well, not all the Jedi died, we still want to tell more stories with Jedi after. Oh, Palpatine's not dead. He came back 3 times in the Legends, and then he came back in the sequels. Like they just, you want to continue to like squeeze as much story out of what should have already been established as the story. And it felt a little bit like this game was going to do it, and then they reveal, nope, joke, like we're sticking to the original script. Like we're making it look like, oh yeah, there's a secret base, but no, the original story is the Jedi were annihilated, and well, congratulations, they tried to restart, they were annihilated. And I was like, I gotta give it to them. They didn't destroy the lore. Like they didn't go back on canon. So
Right.
I did appreciate that about this.
I liked how it continued so Darth Vader is another character that showed up and kills Seer. And, you know, that's a continuation of events that I never thought that we would get in this game. But Seer and Vader fought in the first game. And, you know, this was kind of a point of tension because that's where the moment where Seer almost gives into the dark side too. And Vader, you know, kind of recognizes that when he faces her again. So it was very cool to kind of get the return of Vader in the game, and I feel like his presence in any game in which takes place while he's alive is kind of, it's always cool to have him in there. It's just got to be used just right. And I'm curious if any of you guys felt as if, like, was this a good appearance of Vader? You know, did the game deserve this, or was it an appearance you could have gone without?
I mean, I loved it. I actually think they did a better job of him in the first game, but it was great. Like the first game, it was, you know, you're still figuring out your powers. Seer's cut herself off from the Force. You finally kill a couple of the, or you know, you kill one of the drawing a mind blank here. The help me, Josh.
Inquisitors?
Oh,
Thank you. Inquisitors.
Yes,
the word I'm looking for. And so you're starting to think like, man, this guy's actually like becoming, you know, a decently powerful Jedi. And then Vader shows up and Seer's like, run. And he's like, why? And basically like when she attacks Vader, he just throws her aside like she's a doll. And it hits you like, no, I'm just a baby. Like Vader is so much more powerful than me. So it was just cool that like, you know, there's a reason he's the Dark Lord of the Sith. And then in this game, Seer gave him a run for his money, which was cool. Like it was cool to see that he's not invincible, but it definitely like it didn't feel consistent with how they portrayed Vader in the first game. But anyways, that's my thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool sequence. It was cool seeing him like half on fire, like just visually and stuff. Like his cape was all burning, and then like that moment when Seer like does her final like attack against him, and like you realize her lightsaber went right in between his arm and his side, and she just missed by like an inch, whereas his lightsaber went right through her. It was just like, oh damn, so close.
Yeah, it reminded me of that Old Republic trailer.
Could have all been over.
Do you guys watch those trailers? The old Republic trailer. Do you remind you of that one? Like the Deceived trailer when the Jedi at the very end of that trailer like dies, but it's like a very similar move where they both go to stab each other in the stomach and one of them gets there faster than the other.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
I love those trailers. Those are so good.
They're so good. Yeah,
those are the Star Wars movies we deserve.
Yeah,
It was Vader's health bar, to me, it wasn't really like his health bar when you're attacking him. It was just like his patience meter. As it just goes down, he was just more frustrated. Like you weren't really doing much damage to him.
Right.
That's so good. It is true because you know you're not going to kill him, and so you're wondering what you're building up towards.
Yeah,
that's such a good way to describe it.
I think with the first game, I totally did not expect Vader to show up. So like at the end, I'm like, as soon as I hear him breathing, I'm like, no way. Well, like, I remember when playing that for the first time, but this game, I was almost like, oh, when are we going to see a big cameo type of thing? So when he did show up, I was like, oh, no way. And then as I started fighting him and everything, I'm like, oh, was this completely necessary? But I think the payoff was huge, like especially when he killed Seer. And I loved how they didn't do like a Chewie in episode 9, like where he just came back and they were really committing to kill off the character. And like that was just off the heels of Cordova dying when Bode killed him. So I thought like the game went to some pretty dark places and was willing to stay that way. And Vader definitely brought down Seer in a way that I thought was which kind of brought up how Cal did Cal like actually hold Sia in his arms, or was that like kind of like a forced connection thing? I couldn't quite pick it. But anyway,
it was
great.
I had to look it up. It was a forced connection thing. He wasn't actually there. He was doing forgot what you call the ability.
Yeah,
He just felt it, and then like similar to how like when Luke and Leia in episode 5 could kind of like, or maybe more so when Kylo like had the water on his hand, I guess in episode 8. But yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, there was one more kind of a character appearance which I didn't personally get to see, only because I breezed past a lot of side story stuff in order to finish this story mode before I took 3 weeks off and left my computer behind. But Boba Fett shows up, and it's a very brief cameo, but it was enough for the elite bounty hunter to take a spot on this list. And he is actually, in fact, hunting a character in the game called Cage, who is a I forget a Nautilin, I think, same species as Kit Fisto. So, did any of you guys?
Oh, what? Wait, Boba Fett's in the game?
Yeah,
I totally missed that as well.
yeah, 100%.
I'm actually playing through all the side stuff now, and I haven't gotten to that part yet. I did not know. You just spoiled it for me.
Oh, dang.
No, it's cool. That's cool. Now I have something to look forward to.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting because I was like, I guess it's a super like brief appearance, which is like after you do all of the bounty hunter stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that what the bounty hunter thing was? Because I looked at that, I'm like, yeah, look, this is going to take me away from the main game, so I'm just going to skip that for now.
That's part of the reason why I didn't do it either. Yeah, because I was like, okay, this is going to take me like an additional like 12 hours at least, so or something like that.
I do.
Yeah,
I do recommend if you want to keep playing the game. It's kind of cool. It's just like what happened with God of War 2 Ragnarok, or God of War Ragnarok. Once you beat the game, all the side stuff still tells you story stuff. So as you're completing the side missions, you're still like trying to bring people to Tanalorr, and there's like little things that like keep the story going, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting that. Like you can go back and you're still talking to Bode's daughter. I think it's Kana.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they still have story stuff going. Like, nothing major, but it's still enough to like, oh, this is kind of neat to finish it out.
Yeah. That actually reminds me. Speaking of Kata, I thought the way the story handled Cal giving Bode the choice in front of his daughter, because that could have really messed up the daughter's mind if like Cal just came back and killed her father. Like that could open up a whole can of worms of her being really angry. But like they gave him the decision in front of his daughter on multiple occasions, and I think they played it really well, where the daughter kind of understood but was still upset that her dad had to go.
Right. Yeah. No, kid, he's got.
Yeah, and he even like endangered her a few times. Like he threw her backwards and like.
Yeah, he was. I guess they really wanted to make
definitely not Dad of the Year.
I think they really wanted to make a point of like kind of, I don't know, making his death not so, I don't know, unnecessary. He's like a father of a child, right? Like I think they really wanted to play up like, okay, this dude is a villain. He's not going back, right? It's like I think if they killed like a father of a young child and stuff without giving enough reasons why, like there would have maybe been some angry fans.
I'm just curious what his master plan was. Like him and his daughter were going to live on this whole planet by themselves. Like how is that going to be fulfilling for her? Yeah, she'd be safe.
Well,
that'd be so boring.
I think they offered him a pretty good deal. It's like, hey, you're fine to chill here. Just like let us bring some other people here. And he's like, no.
We'll build a civilization. Like we can all live here peacefully.
Yeah, and he's just had a huge fit of
that.
It's like, oh my goodness, what a selfish dude.
I feel. I know. I feel like that's what that example was, just because he leaned way too far into the dark side. That's what he thought was the best way to do it. He was very selfish.
Yeah.
But if he kind of hadn't gone that far, like he wouldn't have had those views. But yeah, it was so stupid. I'm like, man, just take my hand and let's go. Let's join this rebellion that we got going. Let's all live a happy life on Tanalorr, and then the next game can be like The Sims, but just building a civilization on Tanalorr. But no, he had to be a real douche.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Anybody else see a missed opportunity for the daughter to be like Mara Jade or something?
Oh,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's a good
Just
point.
like-
Actually, that is a force sensitive child.
would the age work out?
I mean,
yeah, yeah. You know what?
it
would,
could.
actually. Yeah, because like Luke is
And-
like 10 in Obi-Wan Kenobi, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the age would work, and she's clearly like, if she ends up being force sensitive, which she probably is, being the daughter of a Jedi, she's going to get trained by Cal and Marin. And yeah, I mean, if I think what made me think of this was your point on if they'd had him killed without justification or without a whole bunch of builds up in front of his daughter. Like, you could have done a whole story off that, right? The daughter grows up trained in the Jedi arts. She's kind of messed up though from watching her dad killed. She's not really sure why he was killed. And then she leaves Tanalorr, goes on her own, soul searching mission, maybe flirts with the dark side, and one day meets Luke. I don't know.
Yeah,
true.
I don't know.
I feel like they with Tanalorr, I feel like they ended it that way, as in like nothing kind of worked out. They found Tanalorr, but nothing worked out because I guess if you think about it, Luke, there's no references in, obviously it didn't exist in the original trilogy, but there's just not many references to Tanalorr and this whole new place where the Jedi existed. So I guess it would have been harder to explain that, but I guess we'll see in the third game. Is there a third game that they're planning?
Yeah. They said that when they wrote it as a trilogy.
Yeah, the third game is kind of sort of on the way, I guess. I don't know if they've started pre-production just yet. I think they're still kind of neck deep in doing bug fixes and stuff on this one. But yeah, the plan is to do a trilogy, and hopefully it comes through, unlike The Force Unleashed, where we got gypped with only 2 out of 3 games. So yeah.
I feel
I think this one's done well enough that they'll do a third.
Oh yeah,
It's made money.
definitely. Yeah. Sorry, what was that, Kurt?
Yeah, this ending was very reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back. I feel it was that tone. It was very, very dark.
Yeah, for sure. There was a lot of good elements about this game, story, character development. The book tie-in was a perk, much like the first one, which had the comic tie-in. The opening was fantastic, Coruscant as a playable planet. That was really cool. The High Republic tie-in as well with that story, and Dagon as a character. The playable planets, the open world aspect of this game compared to the last one was a huge plus. On Kobo really utilized the open world aspect with lots of side stuff there and a huge map to explore. The playability of Seer, I mean, there's so much to like about this game. Was there anything you guys didn't like about this game before we kind of close off?
Absolutely. I hated the parts where you had to grab bats and just glide across stuff. Like,
yeah, I feel
yeah. I've been playing Tears of the King, Zelda, Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom at the same time, and in that game you can just glide off of anything and go anywhere. And I get that this isn't that kind of game; it's not that open of a world, but it just felt weird that on all these random cliff sides were these bats just waiting for you to grab their feet and just start gliding across stuff.
Yeah,
that kind of took me out of the game a little bit for those parts.
Right, just because it feels so forced.
Yeah, and I hated not being able to save at any time. Like, sometimes I'm playing a game at lunchtime and I have to go back to work, and I'm like, I just want to save and to turn off my PlayStation and go on with life. And I'm like, oh crap, I got to find a meditation point now in order to save, so I can just shut this off.
Right. Yeah, and then you can go down a rabbit hole too, because you're like looking for a save point, and then you hit a cutscene, and then it like launches you into the next part of the story, and it just kind of goes on from there. I'd agree with you on that. Definitely the saving issue was like a big deal for me. I don't know about you guys, but I felt the combat was a little laggy as well. Just kind of like the first one. I just, I know it's supposed to be pretty cinematic, so like the timing of kind of when you hit the attack and defend buttons have all got to be so precise. But I felt like, when I was going in for an attack and then kind of corrected my button pick and hit the defense instead, all in the half second that it takes for an enemy to attack me, it just wouldn't work. Like whatever you put in first, like that sticks until your character animation is over, right? So I just felt like, unlike the Batman games or like the Spider-Man games where like the reaction time is so much faster on the character's behalf, they went with a very kind of not comic booky, more realistic look. And so that I can appreciate, but I just felt like it made it kind of overly challenging when fighting even like the lowliest of villains, and made me feel quite incompetent at times. So I don't know. Maybe I'm alone on that, but
no, I agree. Yeah. I agree. It didn't have the fluidity of the Spider-Man or the Arkham Knight games,
right?
Where you could just like bash on the buttons and you just felt like you're just destroying people. Here's like you had to be very precise with the parrying, like getting timing right, and that's where I found going into story mode helped a lot because you had way more time to block and parry.
Yeah, I'm with
you. You guys are wrong.
Yeah.
I'm a Last of Us, Tomb Raider, Uncharted fan. I much prefer that cinematic experience, and so for me, and in all those games, like as soon as you commit to an attack, like in Last of Us, like the second one, right? You're this like little girl or young girl she's not big, she's not strong, so in order to like make a killing blow, she's got to swing this like pickaxe hard. And if you swing and somebody else starts swinging or takes a shot at you, like you've committed to that swing. And so for me, this Jedi Fallen or Jedi Survivor combat system, I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. It was punishing if you were lazy as a fighter, and it was rewarding if you like were patient. So I don't know. But I get it. It's not for everyone.
It's certainly designed with intention. That much is clear. Yeah. Kirk, what do you feel like? What did you not like about this game?
Yeah, I enjoyed most aspects of the game. I wouldn't have anything to comment on with the story. Like I love pretty much every moment of it. Although like I was definitely a Merrin and Cal fan person because I wanted to see more of that, but we got a lot of it, which was good.
Yeah.
In terms of gameplay, I utilized the dual saber and then the crossguard saber. So definitely like what Ben just mentioned in terms of like if I swung too early with the crossguard saber, it would take forever to regain the power to swing it back, and that was like either rewarding or like punishing if you did it wrong, and I quite enjoyed that. I had quite a few crashes on the Xbox, particularly going back to that save point I think Dan mentioned. Like I lost a bit of progress sometimes because the game just full on crashed well after I found a save point, so that was kind of frustrating. And I guess other little bugs like the I found when I was rewatching some other people's cinematics, like those cutscenes, I found that I thought they looked a lot higher quality, like almost like a movie and quite realistic. But I was playing on the Xbox in 4K, the highest version that you could. I felt like my graphics looked very kind of reminiscent of like PlayStation 3/PlayStation 4 graphics, where like the characters didn't look as real, so that kind of took me out of it a little bit, and I had the better graphics. Maybe if I played on the PS5 it would be better, but apart from that, like the only gameplay issue I had was that really weird double jump where you kind of like jumped off a wall to the outside and then you kind of jump back in. I just thought that like defied physics. Like I didn't quite get how that worked. And it was really weird every time I did that. That
feels too Mario for you.
You kind of jumped backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so strange. I don't know if you guys felt that, but yeah, you jumped off the wall and then forward. I was just like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's kind of video gamey. Yeah. I think that's kind of what kind of makes and breaks it for me a little bit too. Is like they'll do stuff that might be like super kind of realistic, like the way that he moves when he's fighting. But then, as soon as he starts jumping off walls and stuff, you're like, okay, he's not Yoda. Like, yeah.
But I'm nitpicking. I'm very much so nitpicking. Like these aren't big issues. I still loved the game. It was great.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. If you guys like, I don't know if you have this scheduled, Josh, but did you want to talk about? Because I know we only touched up on it, but did you want to go into depth about the different experience? Because there's only 3 ways to play this. You can play it on PC, Xbox or
Right.
PlayStation. Like, there's no Switch version or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did forget to ask how it was like, you know, the positives of each platform. So me personally with PC platform, I mean, I do have the option of playing with any controller I want, including you know, keyboard and mouse. I used the Xbox One controller at my disposal. You know, that's the one it's my controller of choice, the one I use with just about any game that might better be used with a controller. I also played Hogwarts Legacy on that one as well. And you know, it's a controller. It's pretty straightforward. It's nothing fancy like the PlayStation controller, but you know, it was all right. I gotta say, like, you know, the PC port I think is the worst out of all the experiences though. So my experience, I think, compared to the rest of you guys, was rougher than it needed to be. But yeah, how was
Sorry, if I were just to ask you though, even though the port wasn't great, you were able to play it because you have an RTX 4080, right?
Yeah, I was able to play it.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally just the software
I mean,
port. Yeah, it nothing to do with the hardware at all. I mean, the game looks amazing. Like the uncapped frame rate that I have was like, you know, looked unbelievable up until the point where I saw my desktop wallpaper again. So
that's what I was going to ask. Like obviously, even though it was better optimized for consoles, you could play it at a higher graphics setting. So, you know, kind of like what was mentioned, the graphics, you know, obviously aren't going to be as high on a console. How did you find the graphics on the PC? Like when it was running, when you had cranked it, you know, right up to max, how did it look?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of unreal. Like, you know, you look at a game like this kind of designed for next gen and then some, you know, when you're playing on the PC, and it's just like, it is so unbelievably crisp. And admittedly, I played most of the game on like a standard with all this crazy hardware, and I played it on a 1080p monitor. But I relaunched it again on my new ultra wide, you know, Samsung G9, you know, beyond the 4K resolution sort of thing, and it was unbelievable. Like, it just looks picture perfect. Everything is as if you were to like take a picture in this universe, and, you know, especially with the right lighting effects and stuff. And this game does have a picture mode, because that's becoming like a really popular thing to have in a lot of games nowadays. So it was really cool. I played around with that, and it was crazy. Like, I was able to get some unbelievable shots, and you know, you can change the lighting effects, and, you know, all this sort of thing, and it's really, really cool. So yeah, I had a really nice time. Kind of, you know, it was like eye candy, like looking at the game, and the most realistic looking Star Wars game that we have. And Battlefront 2 is an old game. The game still looks freaking amazing, like, for the fact that it's like 5 years old already. But yeah, this one just kind of takes it to the next level. Definitely, literally. And you know, I hope I can play it again without all the crashes. Yeah.
I really like that it was made for next generation. The Fallen Order, I felt like, was kind of handicapped a little bit because they designed it to work on the PS4 and the earlier Xbox. Whereas this one was, I think you said it was designed for the PS5. Like,
yeah,
made it really nice. I liked on the PS5. Oh, good.
Yo, so you and Ben, you guys play on PS5, so you had all the fancy like controller mechanics that utilize all the, you know, all the crazy stuff on that. Like, how was using that?
That part was really cool. The controller, like, anytime you go to the map screen, like, your controller emitted like these little droid sounds and stuff. Like, it was that, and having the haptic feedback on the controller was cool. How was the Xbox experience?
Yeah, it was mostly pretty good. I just feel that there were some elements. I played the whole game on the performance mode, apart from some sections, like some major story sections. I could feel a cutscene was coming on. I quickly switched to 4K, but like or the non-optimized performance version. But yeah, there were definitely some moments where I had some lag, drop frames, and crashes. Like, the crashes were the most annoying part. But overall, it wasn't too bad. I am someone that also played Cyberpunk on the very first launch day, and that was a lot more of a dodgy experience compared to this one. And I feel like it wasn't bad enough to take me out of the game. And I played the whole thing within the first week before I think any major updates came out. And definitely don't regret it at all.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I was curious what it was like on the Series X, because like obviously the Series X, even though it wasn't optimized for it, it is a more powerful console. If I were just chip in kind of what Dan was saying with the PS5, the haptic feedback on the controller was fantastic. The biggest thing with the haptic feedback, and this is why, like, if a game supports haptic feedback, I will usually get it for PlayStation 5 before I get the others, because it's one thing when you're looking at it, you can feel the rumble in your controller and you can play the game. Like, it's fine, it's great, it's a wonderful experience. But when you're trying to, in some games, draw a bow, or, you're, I guess in this case, the game took advantage of the Force. Like, if the character didn't grab something with the Force, I felt it before I saw it. Like, right. I could feel the controller just collapse, like the trigger collapse he missed it. Yeah. And whereas if he grabbed it, it resisted like right away. So you felt like you could almost play the game better because the controller and the haptic feedbacks were interacting as your character interacted with his environment. So I have to say, if you can play it on the PS5, you should play it on the PS5, because it added this like extra dimension to the game experience.
Well, time for me to throw out my Xbox, and Josh, you're going to ditch that gaming PC of yours, because they're just paperweights at this point.
But I just bought it.
I definitely did not experience those haptics. Yeah. I definitely didn't experience that level of haptics and stuff. Yeah.
That's something I hope that they bring to the PlayStation port games that they're bringing to PC. But I don't know if we'll ever see that happen, because they got to keep some things console exclusive.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, they gotta.
I wish that you got the haptic feedbacks.
Yeah,
I wish you got haptic feedback on a PS5 controller, Bluetooth to a PC. That would be cool.
Yeah, it would be neat. I don't know if they would ever do it though, just because they got to keep the PS5 kind of relevant, I guess, to buy. That's an experience that you can only get on PS5. But Kirk, I know you got to go real quick. Pablo Points and Poodoos. I'll explain the system after when Ben and Dan give theirs, but just so we can exit you out real quick, because I know you got to head out. What would you rate this game?
I think off memory, Poodoos was bad and Pablo's was good. Is that right? And then it's 3 and 3. Yeah. So for me, I think I will give this a 2.9.
2.9. All right. Sweet.
if I can even do that,
you can do whatever you want, man.
I'll give it. Hell yeah! I'll give it a 3. I absolutely love this game, despite the slight flaws and everything. I am really looking forward to playing it again. I think it was one of the best Star Wars stories I've experienced in the last, however many years it's been. And I'm really looking forward to the third one, but I'm also very satisfied with how this one ended up. And lastly, I honestly think that Cal Kestis is one of the best written characters in Star Wars, period. I feel that's for me at least. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I am so much looking forward to what comes next for this character. And I don't know if I want to see him in a live action thing, but I'm looking forward to what comes next.
Awesome. Thanks for joining up, buddy. We'll catch you again real soon.
Thanks. It was great.
Thank you.
Great meeting you.
Thanks
for having me, guys. Cheers.
All right. See you, buddy. Okay. Ben. Pablo Points and Poodoos. So and Dan, of course. I think both of you guys have done this before. For everyone out there who doesn't know what this system is, it's a rating system that we kind of developed on the podcast for the sake of just cracking a few jokes, but also to actually award some points when they're deserved. So here's the scale. It's 3 Pablo Poodoos is the absolute worst. Moving up from there, you got 2 Pablo Poodoos, 1 Pablo Poodoo. 50% is a Bendu, and then you get Pablo points. You get 1 Pablo point, 2 Pablo points, 3 Pablo points, 3 being the absolute best, 110%, A+ sort of thing. 1 Pablo point is it's pretty good. You know, 2 is even better. That's just great Star Wars. 3 is like used in a rarity to describe like your absolute favorite of favorites. So that being said, Ben, we'll go with you first. What would you give this?
I would give this 2 Pablo.
2 Pablo points. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Just curious.
Yeah, it was
curious. What would be a 3 for you?
The story was a 3, and I'd say the gameplay was maybe like a 1.5.
Oh, interesting.
The gameplay was great.
Yeah.
I fully agree that like the bat thing was kind of dumb. Like I didn't, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of that. And I did think that I don't know. I it was good. Like the 1.5 is still a good score, right? If we're looking at this as a rating out of 7, to say that it's a 5.5 out of 7, that's still a high rating. I don't know. I think that the puzzles maybe could have been a little bit better. I did not like Seer throwing these like rocks down cliffs to defend a temple against like tanks. Like I thought that was dumb. So there was just a few like gameplay things that I thought made it feel like everything about it felt like a cinematic experience, and then they just chucked in a couple random things that were like, well, okay, you know, that's cool. So yeah, I give it a 2. The story was a 3. Most of the game was a 2 or a 3. There were a few things that dragged it down, so I think I'll give it a 2 as my kind of total score.
Fair enough. And Dan, what would you give? How many Pablo points or Poodoos?
I think I agree with Ben. I'd give it a 2. Story-wise, 3. It vastly improved on the first game. The first game I found Cal to be kind of annoying at times. And in this one, I didn't find him annoying at all. Like I really bought into his character development. I really liked the path he took. And gameplay wise, like, yeah, 1.5. Like at times it was really good. Some of the puzzles I really enjoyed. There's the battle where Mirren's teleporting you around. You're fighting this giant like bulldozer thing. I thought that was really cool, and I wanted more of that in the game. And there was only really that, and then a little bit during his fight with the Jedi. But yeah, it's like I was really frustrated at the beginning of the game because like you get to parts and you're like, oh, I want to solve these puzzles. I want to do this stuff. And it's like, oh, I don't have that ability yet. And it's like not until way later in the game that you get like certain abilities to like unlock new doorways or be able to go through like the energy fields and stuff. And they don't tell you that right off the bat. So I wasted a lot of time trying to like find these things in rooms I was never supposed to get into until the later half of the game. But
gotcha.
But with that said, still didn't ruin the game for me. Like it was a good Star Wars game. And I'm happy to see where they do with the third one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, so I would probably give the story like, you know, a 2.75, something in there. Gameplay for me was probably 1 Pablo point. I mean, at least on the PC platform, I think all the negativity I experienced kind of took away, I think, from my experience. But overall, you know, a pretty good game. And I would say, you know, if you kind of average that score out, I think it lands, you know, around the 2 Pablo point mark, I guess. So you know, it was good. It was good. Metacritic gave this 78 out of 100 on PC, 85 out of 100 on PS5, and an 84 out of 100 on Xbox Series X and S. There's a whole bunch of other reviews you can find online. IGN gave this a 9 out of 10. That's a pretty notable company right there. And Games Radar Plus gave this, what is that, 4.5 out of 5 stars. So GameSpot 8 out of 10. So I think, you know, everyone's pretty much on the same page. It's like near perfect, but there's still some room to improve. And all things considered, with the rough launch that it had, you know, that's pretty good. So thank you both, Ben, Dan, and of course Kirk. We already left, but thank you guys for coming back on and chatting Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Hopefully we'll see you guys back again very soon. Ahsoka's around the corner. So maybe we'll catch you guys on one of those, or maybe another group episode that we got going on. So, but yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us. And I gotta say, I'm super excited about Star Wars Outlaws. That game looks pretty good.
Oh,
Me too.
definitely.
Yeah.
We'll do another
Thank
one of
you,
these.
Josh.
We'll do another one of these for that.
That sounds good. I need to give us a little bit more time to finish that game. Ubisoft doesn't make short games.
Yeah, for sure. All right, see you guys.
See ya.
All right, thank you all for tuning into the podcast as you always do. And remember, drop 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if that's where you listen. Hit that subscribe button. And you can also find us on YouTube now as well, with the handle at SW Escape Podcast in the search bar. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram as well with the same handle at SW Escape Podcast. All links and handles are in the description below, and you can send a voicemail to our email, swescapepodcast@gmail.com. We will catch you in the next episode of Star Wars Escape Pod, and may the Force be with you.